Being authentic is currency. Nowadays, the world we live in, trust is currency. Your reputation is currency. And that's why, so you find that the richer you are in the village, the more authority you have. You can go around commanding everyone. This is the chicken I want slaughtered. Hey, what are those people doing there? Can they? Did you notice that? And then you find that somebody who doesn't seem to have anything, their voice also seems to diminish as well. When sometimes we have something within us, we don't always see it. Whenever you meet somebody for the very first time, what do you tell that person about yourself? Like if I can tell you is, what are you creating? Because that's what you were put on earth to do. So there's this famous psychologist. His name was Abraham Maslow. Yeah, so Abraham Maslow came up with a hierarchy of needs, right? So there was the traditional one which had 5 hierarchy of needs, and then later on they added it to be 7. So according to Abraham Maslow, he figured out that human beings are motivated by something. There's something that motivates somebody when they wake up in the morning to be able to not hit that snooze button at 5 a.m. and start praying at 5. And somebody else wakes up at 5 a.m. and they're jogging before work or going to the gym before work. There's somebody else at 5 a.m. they're sitting writing papers or doing their book or whatever they're doing. But then there's somebody else who is wondering, how do people wake up at 5? You know, some people struggle with such a thing. So according to Abraham Maslow, his logic was that human beings have things that motivate them. And this motivation is not based on the past or even the future, but it's based on the right now and what stage somebody is in right now. And he classified the needs to several needs, and the basic one that he put at the bottom is the one for basic needs. Basic needs is food, shelter, air, water, you know, what you call the physiological needs. And these needs, according to him, was that when somebody is in that level where they are struggling to find any of these things, they are unable to move to the next step. Their mind cannot comprehend the next step. That is why when you find somebody is homeless on the street, at that particular moment, they're not worried about self-esteem, they're not worried about their reputation, because they're at the stage of physiological needs. And for you to be able to even find your voice, you need to find out what even motivates you in the first place. And now as we go through, you'll be able to identify at what stage you are currently. Whether you're at this stage or you've moved on to the safety stage. Safety is where now a human being has already, they're not worrying about what they'll eat, they're not worrying about where they sleep, so they have some other now new requirement in their life. That means I need to feel safe. I now have a home, I have a roof over my head, but for me to be able to sleep properly, I need to feel that there's a sense of security, not just in my home, in my country, that there is order. If my neighbor does something wrong to me, there's somewhere I can report them. So people start now craving order and security when they move on to the next stage. Then we have belonging, a sense of belonging and love. So it now reaches now a point whereby when you're sick, very sick in hospital, I don't know who has ever been sick in hospital. At that time when you're here, you know what it's like. When you're sick in hospital, at that moment, you're not caring about, there's a group that was formed in work or by your friends and you are left out. At that point, your mind cannot even comprehend such a thing. You are just so focused on your health. So you're down here. So, but at this point, you're now feeling like I need to belong to something. Either a church group, either my friends have, you feel like you need to belong to a group of people. You need to feel loved. You're craving intimacy of some kind. Whether that's in a relationship, like getting married, or whether it's from your parents. And that's why, like I said, even people who grew up in abject poverty, they're not caring at that point whether they're given hugs or whatever. They just want to be fed at that particular point. With time, you now move to esteem needs. And esteem is now working on your particular ego. You now care who you are in society. Watu wananiona aje? How are people seeing me when I walk around? What's my reputation like? Yeah? Am I respected? And do you respect others? So you start finding that you have role models that you're looking up to. And also even you start craving to be seen as somebody. You want to take up maybe leadership positions, whether you're in school or at work. You crave promotion and things that are feeding your self-esteem. The next level is now what was now added. Before it used to go straight to self-actualization, but with time they added something called cognitive needs. And now this is for the brain. You need to be intellectually stimulated. Yeah, you've now reached a point where it matters, the discourse that you're in. You start finding that you don't want to waste time in conversations that are silly. You start getting annoyed by discussions that end nowhere. You're very particular with how you spend your time. You know, you start now seeking for something greater than yourself. You're feeling like there's something larger to be done. And at this stage, you're looking for a lot of answers in this cognitive stage. We move on now to aesthetic needs. And this is where you start wondering, you start hearing some people saying, how can somebody go to a restaurant and spend 10,000 on lunch? Yeah? Who pays business class? Like you're going to Mombasa here, 45 minutes. 45 minutes flight, 10,000 shillings. And somebody has decided to pay first class for this 45 minutes flight. And they're going to pay like 100,000, you know, and you cannot comprehend. Are they out of their minds? But this person has been progressing through these needs, and you cannot stay the way the human being is. You cannot improve yourself and stay the same. You have to keep moving. I think you've seen this even when you see overnight celebrities in Kenya. Sometimes somebody starts overnight, they are nobody, they were found in this state, but given time, given a bit of money, you usually see a change in them. So you cannot stay the same. So when you reach now this level, you start craving things like beauty, nice experiences. You know, you're willing to pay a little bit more for just service and how you're treated. You start now craving things like that, and that is called the aesthetic stage. Then we have self-actualization. This is where a lot of people are bogged down by, why am I even here? I was put on this earth for a reason. Why am I even on this earth? You know, and everything you do starts becoming a bit more meaningful. You see a lot of philanthropists giving away, giving back a lot, and you try to understand from your perspective, why do they give so much? Okay, I get that you're rich. When you see people like Manu Chandaria, and they're giving to each and every cause in this Nairobi, why do they give away so much? You know, you start finding somebody who has sat for a long time now deciding that they want to share their knowledge with others. They want to start mentoring young people. They want to start doing things like that because they're starting to wonder, I was not put on this earth to just get a job, get money, eat, go on holiday. There has to be something greater that I was put here to do. And the higher you climb up this from a communication perspective, the easier it is for you to communicate because you kind of know what you're here for. There's an observation that I made in that the voice up country, when we go to the countryside, your voice is directly related to the amount of money you have. So you find that the richer you are in the village, the more authority you have. You can go around commanding everyone. This is the chicken I want slaughtered. Hey, what are those people doing there? Can they? Did you notice that? Yeah? So, and then you find that somebody who is doesn't seem to have anything, their voice also seems to diminish as well. They can't speak up, but when they're in their own groups, like if you go there on a normal day before the city people arrive, this is someone who is a leader. They talk with people, but when the others come, they have no voice. What happens to their voice, right? And then finally we have transcendence. This is a level where now somebody has reached and they are zen. They are at peace. Nothing perturbs them on this planet. Yeah, they've reached a level where they know their purpose. They understand what they're here to do. They understand they're not here for all the fads, all the materialism. They understand their purpose. And why am I going through all this with you? Because you have to understand, if you're one of the people who cannot find your purpose, you struggle with it, because I also struggled with finding my purpose, and I'll give you that story a bit later on. But if you're struggling, it's good to understand where you are so that you're able to see what can be able to motivate you, right? Now, for me, sometimes when you're trying to find out what you're good at, and the reason I like going back to this basic is because for the people who have studied communication, they know that communication is a process. It is not a one-off thing. As I like repeating in other spheres, communication is not a poster. It's not a logo, and it's not a website. It's a process. It's a process that involves a sender, Like now in this case, I am a sender and you people are the receiver. And I'm trying to take a message that I have and I want you to receive my message. And then there's a process we pass through. I have to decide now which channels do I use to ensure that the message reaches my audience. And then I have to navigate like a video game. You know, the video games, you always have to pass through obstacles, yeah? So the games people are playing nowadays, Roblox and the likes, I don't know what the objective is, but I remember when we were playing Mario Bros, the objective was, it cannot be easy. You're jumping, and then you fall down somewhere and something like that. So in communication process, there's also something called noise. And noise is obstacles. Noise is things like, it could be as easy as a language barrier. You can't understand each other. It could be, I'm talking down at you. I'm talking at a very high level and my audience can't understand because I'm using so much jargon. It could be even the timing of the day. I'm talking to you at a time when your mind is not awake, you know. It could be a great dislike to something or someone, and when they speak you cannot hear what they say because you just generally dislike them. Sometimes it happens, and that is, communication is a process. So if you are a sender, now you people, my audience, you are the sender. All of you are trying to communicate something wherever you are. Whether you're in school, whether you're at work and you're trying to get a promotion, or you're going for an interview, you're looking for a job, or you run a small business and you're wondering how to package your small business, or you're even in a relationship and you're trying to see how to communicate those needs in your relationship. All that is communication. You cannot start communicating if you don't have the receiver, and you cannot communicate if you don't have the message. So today we want to delve into your message, because sometimes why people struggle in communicating is because either they don't have a message, number one, you're already opening your mouth but you have nothing to say. Have you ever been called upon in an event and you're told, hey, Linda, stand up and tell her, and you are caught unaware, and you're like, what do I say? But you must fill the space with words. Sometimes that's what we are doing. We are communicating, but genuinely we do not have a message. Sometimes you have a message, but it's so distorted, you don't even know what you're saying. So your audience gets confused because there is no order to what you're saying. So we have to help you find your message first. When you have a message, you're able to communicate it very clearly and very well. When sometimes we have something within us, we don't always see it. I'll give you an example myself. I'm a good writer. Today I can say I'm a good writer, a very good writer. But when I was younger, it was a skill set I did not see in myself, but others saw in me, but I did not see it in myself. When I was in primary school, I used to write. My compositions were always top in my class, and it was effortless for me to write. When I went to high school, I started writing my first novel in high school without even thinking a bit. I don't even know why I didn't even finish it, but I was actually writing a book. My friends used to come to me, and that's why I say sometimes people see it in you. And they'd tell me, I'm the one who used to write letters for their boyfriends. They'd come to me and they'd tell me, here is the letter he wrote, please respond to it. True story. My work was responding to people's letters. I'd write for them poems. They'd tell me write a poem and I'd write. I was a very good writer, but I didn't see it. I thought that because it came so easy and naturally for me, I thought that it's something that everyone can do. So when I went to university, again, everywhere I went, people would see it in me. When we had a school newspaper, I was at Daystar University. It was called Involvement. And somehow, I don't even know how the editor even found me. And he's telling me, assigning me bits, write this article, I'm getting published. But I was even reluctant because I used to find writing for the student newspaper like these people were a bit like nerds, and I felt like I better be doing other fun things, you know. And you'd find that people would always call you into these spaces, and then I was not looking for them. So sometimes there's something in you that you yourself don't see, because the thing that comes easiest to you, you take for granted. You feel like, hey, this can't be it. This can't be the thing. It is the thing. That thing that you find very easy, that you enjoy doing and doesn't feel like work. Like for me, writing does not feel like work at all. It feels like just something I do for fun. Writers in the house, so it feels like something just I do for fun. And I used to think it's easy for everybody. So each and every one of us in this room, there is something that you find very easy to do that you enjoy. But because when you look at the people who seem to be successful, since you cannot see somebody like that, you assume that that cannot be it. You assume that that cannot be it. But I'm here to tell you that that is it. That thing that you find you do easily, effortlessly, that's the thing that you need to nurture. Now, because I am a person of faith, yeah, I would not want to just stop there when it comes to to finding your purpose. I believe that when we go to finding our purpose, you have to go back to the very beginning, which is what I do myself. I'm a Christian, and I always go back to the book of Genesis. Because for me, who believes in the story of creation, then I have to understand, why was I created? When I'm looking for the answer, I have to go to the one who created me. And you'll find that, especially around the world nowadays, you'll find around the world, everything comes out with a manual. I don't know if human beings are becoming dumber and dumber or what, because nowadays, everything has an instruction. I think no one wants to get sued, right? So you'll find even something like a chair. Somebody will tell you, sit here, do not move this, whatever. So everything has a manual, and it has a step-by-step way of how to do it, right? Who has received anything without a manual? I mean, even when you buy like even a water bottle, it comes with a small little tiny manual telling you, turn left, you know. You buy even a tin of soap, it has directions on how to open this way, right? But then you with your life, your most precious commodity is your life, right? Does your life have a manual? Because the person who created this being is the one who knows how you're supposed to work. True or not true? So usually when you meet somebody, because you go and you travel to very many different places, whenever you meet somebody for the very first time, what do you tell that person about yourself? Like if I come now and I start greeting you and say, tell me about yourself, what will you tell me? Because you know that you're speaking to a communications coach. So you'll probably tell me something in the line of, you know, either your profession or something to do with your personal brand. If you go somewhere else and you're meeting maybe with your pastor and he says, introduce yourself, you'll probably introduce yourself in a way, you want to tell him the thing that is the most critical for that. If you go for a job interview and you ask, tell me about yourself, again, you'll dip in and say what you think they want to hear about you, right? So the very first time that the Creator speaks to us, very, very first time, what does he tell us? He tells us about how he created the earth. Day 1, I did this and I did this. Day 2, I did this and I did this. And he tells us the process of how he did it. Of all the things that God is, why would he start by telling us such a story? I mean, imagine if you are God. Of all the things he could tell human beings, why start with that one? And then the very first thing that he tells us about ourselves is what? That we are made in his own image. And the first thing that he tells us about himself is that he's a creator. Right? So that means, and when I say creator, I don't mean content creators. But those are creators too. Everybody was put on this earth to produce something. Are you producing something? Whatever your field is, for some, you're photographers or videographers, you're content creators, great. Others are in the food industry. Others are scientists. Others are writers and everything. What are you producing? For me, for many years, the people who know me know I've been writing a book for how many years? They won't even say. It's just been there, sticking because of fear. I saw two people write in the Mentometer about fear, because of fear, right? Despite that telling you that from childhood, I have been a writer, and every space I've gone to, there's no space in my life where I have not been recognized as a writer. None. But because I don't believe in myself, I have fear. Fear takes over. So I just don't put it out. But guess what? You're going to see it this year. Clap for me. So anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is, what are you creating? Because that's what you were put on earth to do. Our education system, it's good, but sometimes it confuses us. Because when you're very young, you're put in school, you're taken through class, do this, and then you're told, Mwisho wa kusoma. So there was a song like that when we were younger that used to be played on the national TV, right? Telling us to some, so many vijana. But anyway, we used to be told at the very end of it, you're going to get a very good job. And that's what we've been conditioned to do. Work very hard so that you can get a job. So you just you join the rat race, which is not bad for experience, but you also, for you to find that true purpose of yourself, you have to go back to why you were created. So I've diverted a bit, so let me just come back to the story, but I thought it's important to mention that because it makes it easier for you to be able to find the purpose for which you were created. So for others who want to read a bit more about what I said, the place to go is Genesis chapter 1, right? Now, let's now show the connection of why we are now talking about this purpose. So when we talk about purpose, it leads now to your voice. So once you know your purpose, you're already aligned in terms of your voice. And what is a voice? A voice is how you represent yourself. It's how you talk about who you are. You cannot talk about personal branding. You know, personal comes from the word me, a person, yeah? So if you don't even know who you are as a person, then what are you talking about? What are you even branding? What is going to happen is you become inauthentic. You go with the fads. Who is trending and how can I copy them? So you let other people determine what your brand is. So you're just checking to see who is succeeding nowadays. What are they doing? Oh, let me dress like them. Let me give them message like them. Let me do this like them. But the problem is that with being inauthentic, the first problem, number one, is that you cannot maintain it long term. It can only be a short term thing because you'll burn out. If it's not in you, it's not in you. You cannot copy somebody who has a gift in them that you don't have, as you're busy neglecting the gift that you do have. So number two, being authentic is currency. Nowadays, the world we live in, trust is currency. Your reputation is currency. And that's why people attack people who seem like they're changing their brand. Have you noticed that? That if somebody has a brand and one day they do something that goes against that brand, like you told us that you're on our side. I saw the Gen Z during the movement last year attack quite a lot of their celebrities because of that, where you have been showing us like you're one of us, and then when we need you, you're nowhere to be seen. However, they are not attacking the people who from the get-go are saying that they are not for this thing. There are people from the get-go who are saying, what are these people doing? They don't attack those ones because those ones are true. They're saying it, they're saying what they believe. So here it's not about someone forcing you to be something else, but nowadays you are held accountable for the things that you tell us you are. So be very careful before telling people that you're something unless you're sure that you're that thing. Once you now identify your voice, it now moves to something called impact. Impact. So impact means results. Once you have gotten your purpose, you find your voice, you now get your impact. What is impact? I'm running a small business. Yeah, I have defined who I am. I am myself. And now I'm able to sell my products because I have no fear. When you take yourself through this process, the fear disappears. You start getting clarity. Do you know where fear comes in? Fear and self-doubt. It comes from that word doubt. Doubt means not sure. I'm not sure. So if you're doing an exam and the teacher asked a question and you're not quite sure of the answer, because you're not sure, you lack that confidence. So fear and confidence are linked. Eliminate fear, you get confidence. Because fear is just removal of doubt. When you pass this process, you know who you are, the fear disappears because you're not guessing. It's no longer a guess game. You know exactly who you are. So the impact starts showing itself. You're able to build a reputation. You're able to network. You're able to get that job. You're able to start that business. You're able to do those sales. You're able to write that book. You're able to do all those things you've been trying to do. And this is how it is connected. And that's why we are spending a lot of time on that purpose. Are we together so far?
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, let's now come to personal branding. Personal branding. What is personal branding? Because that is a buzzword that is used quite a bit. Personal branding. Personal branding just means, like now, for example, you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, I think I'm flowing, I can see, I'm good at this, so now I have a brand. No, you don't. Because personal branding is intentional. It's intentional. It's where you now decide, I want to intentionally work on my reputation. I want to work on the things that I want to be known about. There is no human being, even one, who only has 2 traits. There are so many other things I am, right? But I've not mentioned them here. So all of us have a lot of noise. When you're trying to identify the it thing, there are many other things that you do. Even me, there are many other things that I do, right? I hike, I try to play tennis, I'm struggling with golf, I'm a mother, I cook sometimes, I do other things well, etc., right? There are many other things that I do. But you cannot communicate them all. So for you to have a personal brand, it means that you're deciding which of these items, and please, whatever I say for personal brand, please also apply to your small business, apply to everything else you're doing. Sometimes you cannot talk about it all. That's why when you see Unilever has several products, do you see them ever do an ad for all of them at the same time? Blue Band, Omo. So it's one by one. You'll confuse people. They're like, what are you selling us? Because sometimes even your products are competing with each other. Human beings, we are a contradiction of things. There is something I'll tell you about me, you're like, nah, I can't be. Yes, me. Because they seem so out of sync, but it's still the same person. Right? It's possible for somebody to still be, maybe you're bougie, you like going to nice restaurants, and I'll still meet you on Saturday in the Muturadian. It's possible. Right? So you have to now decide, what about you do you want to package? You cannot package everything. So you sit down and you're intentional about working on your reputation and what it is you want to drive. Other definitions of personal brand is as simple as what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Yeah, if you leave rooms, would people say this person is this, the thing that you're saying, would people agree? Because personal branding is working on the management of your reputation towards the public. You want the public to think of you the way you intend them to think of you. In a nutshell, that's what personal branding is. Doesn't mean that everybody will like you. Of course, you'll always have to find your audience, and that's another topic for another day. Audience is also very key in determining who you're talking to, because you cannot talk to the whole world all at once. Now, I talked about developing your unique selling point, and that's what I am discussing right now. You're many things, but you can't package them all. So you have to choose and say, this audience I'm talking to, who am I talking to first of all? You have to be able to see them with your mind's eye. Imagine them as a person. How old are they? Where do they live? What do they love doing? Do they love sports? You have to see your audience with your eye. Do not communicate to everyone. You can never, your message, you could be talking to people and no one is listening to you, no one is buying your product, no one is interested in what you're saying, not because you have a bad product, but because you're talking to the wrong people. So you need to define your audience so that you're sure that it's also landing. The way you've worked on your message is the way you work on your audience. You have to know that not every message is for everyone. Work on defining that audience so that you know where to go and sell your product, which is very, very critical, and you're able to define that. Now, let's come to the practical bit. I want to give you a couple of steps that can help you build your personal brand. Reflect on your values and passions. Ask yourself, what do I truly care about? What do you care about genuinely from the bottom of your heart, without forcing? You know, when I was growing up, sometimes you're just forced, especially when you're writing CVs. At the bottom, you have to write there, I enjoy sports, team player. You know, you're just writing what you feel is the right answer. But as you do this assignment, I want you to ask yourself, what are your true values? When you write your true values, you're able to do something called a vision statement. And that is homework I'll give you. Your vision statement is what is going to let you walk in your life. For me, like I told you, I'm a believer in Christ. So I'm intentional to ensure that I use biblical values in everything that I do. Yeah? When I was starting this series, at first I used to battle with, do I inject my faith into it or do I just keep it professional? But because for me it was such a great value of mine, I said I will inject it. Yeah? And I will find the audience that is receptive to that. Right? So don't overthink. You'll always find your people. Write down your values. Am I a person who is big on honesty? Am I big on trust? What do I believe in? What are my core, deep down, what are my core beliefs? Write them down. Without lying, no one, this is your personal assignment. Don't say you care about the environment and you know for sure. You've never even understood what the big deal is in your heart. When no one is seeing you, unafungua tu kadirisha, roll down your window. If you know you're that type, don't write that you care about the environment. Write what you genuinely care about. Everybody cares about something. Everybody. Write it down. Number 2, identify your core message. I don't think this one will disturb you because I've spent quite a bit on it. Yeah? Identify that core message, which is what is inside of you that you'd want to communicate. You might not have figured it out, how to do it, but you are seeing what it is. Then number 3 is you choose your platforms. This is what I was calling channels earlier. So by channels, we don't just mean social media. Yeah? For me and some of my age mates in the room, there was a whole life before before social media. I was telling some people in the office about it. And as we knew how to manage, and we'd make phone calls and we'd organize how we're going to meet up even a month in advance. And we'll say on 15th of February, 2 p.m. we meet where? Kenya Cinema. That used to be the meeting point, you know? And the only way to know that somebody is not coming is you stand there outside Kenya Cinema. We used to be a whole crowd. You stand there for at least an hour. An hour. 2 to 3. 3? That's when you decide this person is not coming. You know? Another world, for sure. But people used to keep time. So when I say choose your platforms, I know most of the young people in the room think of the channels as just social media and digital media, which is great. But there are other channels as well. There are one-on-one channels. There are networking sessions. There is writing. So there are very many channels. So don't only think of social media, digital platforms, but even that is very key. But identify your platforms. You don't have to be everywhere. Remember, only take action after you have decided where, of course, you know you're the sender. So you know the sender. Work on knowing who the receiver is. Do not start sending messages and you don't even know who your audience is. Identify who your audience is. Look for places where your audience is, whether that is digitally or physically. Find your people, find your community. Don't just blast to everybody, right? And then you will know where your audience is. Then develop consistent visual and verbal identity. Now, this number 4 is very critical, but it's the one thing that people usually assume a personal brand is. When people are starting on their personal branding, that's where they tend to start, which today I'm telling you is not where you start. It's very important, but it's not the starting point. You only get here when you have determined all that. This is the point where now you start deciding, okay, let me get a logo, let me do a website, let me create some flyers, let me open a social media page, let me do ABCD. Even when you're working with your graphic designers and your people, it's so easy. When your website designer asks you, please send for me your vision statement, send for me your mission, send for me your values, you won't go like, so just write for me. You know, some people tell website designers to write for them their values, you know? So that shows that you're confused and your message is going to be confused because you don't even know what you stand for. But if you've done all this other work, by this number 4 is going to be so easy for you. Yeah, you're not going to find it daunting. Even when you're choosing your colors and you're choosing everything, it's going to be so easy. So of course, visual identity matters. And as you're choosing your visual identities, ensure it aligns with your value system. So when you're choosing your visual identity, ensure it aligns with who you are. Do not get cheated to either come up with colors, symbols, dressing of something that you know is not in line with your message. And remember also it has to be consistent. Whenever you go even to the village, deep down in the most remote part of this country, you see an M-Pesa shop, right? Have you ever seen a single M-Pesa shop with the wrong color of green? Like the shade has changed. No matter how dingy the place is or remote, you've never seen such a thing, right? That's how consistent you should be with your brand. Do not keep changing things. Stick to something. Then engage and listen. Now, I didn't mention a very critical part that completes the communication cycle, and that is called feedback. Feedback is how you know that your message has landed or not landed, right? If I shout, Anne, come here, and then Anne turns and starts walking towards me, that's feedback. her turning and her walking towards me is feedback. If you run a shop with your product you're selling, people buying that product is feedback. So if you have product A, you're selling Nike shoes and you're selling Adidas shoes, and Nike keeps selling and this one is not selling, that's feedback, right? So feedback is not necessarily somebody talking to you. It could even be silence. That silence is feedback by itself. When I'm looking at the audience, I'm able to know where the message is landing and where it's not landing, because I'm able to look at your faces. I'm able to see who is connecting and who is lost. So it can also be body language. Then develop your voice. This is your tone, style, and personality. By voice we mean, it doesn't mean whether you have a soprano or a bass. Yeah? By voice we mean, this is what we mean by voice, right? When you say, even let me think of products that come from the same company, Coca-Cola, Sprite, Fanta. When you see them packaging Coca-Cola or Sprite or Fanta, imagine Fanta as a person, yeah? How old are they? Are they old or young? Young, right? Are they fun or boring? Fun. So Fanta is bubbly, fun, and all the messaging is like that, right? What about Sprite? Athletic. Sprite is athletic, right? But all of them are carbonated drinks with sugar, right? But Sprite is athletic. And how do you know? By their voice. Coca-Cola is always happy. They're always celebrating something for some reason. Yeah. Say that Christmas, a family is together celebrating something. That's what we mean by voice. So voice means it's your style of talking. It's how you talk. So every time somebody hears you, they can tell this is so and so's voice. And the thing is, even for organizations, you'll be shocked to find that it's not one person. The audience thinks that it's one person who is writing like that. Like, hey, that team member of DCI or that person for Safaricom. It's not one person, it's a team. But because they've agreed what the voice is, each member of the team is able to write in that voice, right? So don't confuse people with today, you're in the mood, so you write for them something that sounds like it's from you. You know? Then tomorrow, because you're not in the mood, ChatGPT, pop, do your thing, you know? And then we start saying there, it was a testament to my legacy. People are like, what? It doesn't sound like you. So that's what we mean by your voice. So whoever you are, it needs to show in your entire character, in your entire voice, whether on social media or, that's what we mean by voice.